Tonight, we start out tonight's show by dipping into the mailbag. Tonight's mailbag has a rather self-effacing letter, if you will. It's from Brian Saponis, who was a guest on the last show, and he said, "Thanks so much for inviting Jesse and I into the show to talk about our new movie. It was a great show. It came out good. We had lots of fun." If you don't know what he's talking about, you need to, whatever site you're on now, scroll down a little bit and check out our official exclusive interview with Brian Saponis and Jesse Hutchins. They are going to be shooting this fall in and around the Pittsburgh area, and especially up in Brockway, for their new movie called A Quiet Town. We talk a lot about that and a whole lot more. It's a really good interview, and you'll want to check it out. What a way to start the show. I've got a lot more for you as cinematic class is about to begin, and your professor is in. Greetings, salutations, another sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor and purveyor of truth in movies. And you know, it's still kind of cold over here on the East Coast. We just had an ice storm last night, made it to the studio with a little bit of ice chipping going on the windshield this morning. So that's why the official Rex Reel store has a special sale on hoodies, sweatshirts, and blankets. You ought to check it out. Those savings could be up to 60% off. It's the official Rex Reel store. Check them out today. Hey, they make good gifts too. Good way to stay warm. All right, let's get into the meat and potato of today's show. Let me grab my specs here so I can read my script and start off with a movie called Juror Number 2. You know, Clint Eastwood is kind of, well, he's methodical, but it's also kind of clever in a way. He's in his 90s now, so he's only really producing one movie a year, and he manages to let that movie come out just in time for awards consideration, and this one is no exception. He crafts a fine film here with Juror Number 2, but, you know, I'm not a lawyer, though I have played one on several television shows, and even as a layman, I can tell you that there are way too many lines that are crossed in this movie referring to the law and even the case matters. And they include talking to defendants, visiting the crime scene after the trial has started, investigating the trial by the DA again after it started, confronting jurors, and a whole lot more. You know, it was just a little while ago, if you follow me on the socials, I did a review for Donnie Yen's latest film called The Prosecutor. And that is also a courtroom drama, but I said in my review what makes it interesting and worth seeing again is they space fight scenes all through it, and it's an awful lot of fun. Keeps the pace going, keeps the action going, things like that. This movie doesn't have that, and so as a result, it tends to drag a little bit, okay, and become a little bit, you know, geez. And then naturally, like most courtroom dramas, once you've seen this movie and seen the ending, the tension is all gone because you know what the outcome is, and it's really not worth another view. Kendall is in this. That's Clint's daughter, so this could have been maybe just a vehicle to get her out there. Possibly, I don't know. Anyway, this movie has already done a fast run through the theaters, and it is now streaming on Max. It gets about an average grade. Here's a look at Juror number 2.
It was last October. It was raining, and I hit something. I got out of the car and I looked around. I checked, I didn't see anything, and I figured it was a deer that ran off.
Okay, what's the problem?
I got called for jury duty. The case?
1 year ago, on October 25th, the defendant, James Scythe, and his then girlfriend, Kendall Carter, they had a fight. And he's gonna pay for what he did.
What are you telling me?
Maybe I didn't hit a deer.
Let me just ask you one thing. Did you guys ever look at any other suspect? You know what to do.
Well, folks, what begins as a truly gross horror film quickly descends into one of the worst movies of the year. I know it's just the beginning of the year, but believe me, this will be up there. Shawn Michael, Donna Thompson, Joe Vaz, Warwick Greer, and Gary Green all star in a movie that is based around the super libido of poor homeless people and the humor of having an inappropriate erection and sliced penises. I kid you not. For more expert commentary on street trash, let's peel back those veils of time and head back to the early Cretaceous period for the nation's first and only prehistoric film critic, Rex Reel.
A bizarre tale of the elite's ploy to eliminate the poor, centered on debased Freudian concepts. The poor are eulogized as miscreants of filth, stupidity, low intelligence, and a burden on society, while mocking minorities and members of various victim classes. The film also alibis and encourages the use of drugs among the poor. In fact, the mysterious blue glowing vial assists in their battle against their oppressors. Comedy elements are here, but writer-director Ryan Kruger misses the boat.
You know, when Street Trash opened, the first scene, the meltdown scene, if you will, was done really well. It looked realistic and reminded me of The Incredible Melting Man, which looked pretty good. And I thought, well, we're in for a gore fest here. But then the meltdowns become comical. And when people melt, they do so in all the primary colors of Sesame Street. It's ridiculous. You have neon blues and purples and greens and yellows and everything coming out of people. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Some of you are going to say, well, Professor, don't you remember there was an original Street Trash some decades ago and it was just as campy? Yes, that is all true. But if you're going to redo a movie, you don't redo it just like the original. Remember when they tried that with Psycho? They did a remake that was frame for frame exactly the same, and it bombed. It went nowhere. You know, I mean, if you're going to do a remake, do it somehow different. And while there are little minor differences in the plot in this one, they put a lot more of the social context in it, trying to get rid of the homeless and all that stuff that ties into today's news headlines rather than what it did, so many decades ago. So, this version of Street Trash, if you like the first version, you probably need help. And if you like this version, your drugs are too strong.
Bring in volunteer number 85.
I'm still gonna get paid.
Volunteers receiving a dose of synthesized
Please don't put that
substrate
needle in me.
B282.
No, stop. Wait.
Citywide curfew is now in effect. You are ordered to remain in your homes and off the streets. Failure to comply will result in prosecution.
It's the 8th consecutive year of Mayor Mustard. Will he be re-elected?
Mayhem in the city. Homeless are fighting against the government. People are fighting for their rights. There's another one! Go!
No babies.
I present to you the crew, the most incredible crackheads that you'll ever meet.
I have reduced the number of homeless people in the city to basically zero.
The mayor's multing people.
They're exterminating everybody. You are finally ready, my China. It's time.
We don't want this party turning into a massacre.
Massacre sounds good to me!
All right, there is a lot of news shaking around Tinseltown, so let's get that started with this edition of The Biz Buzz. Giovanni Ribisi is recognized as a fine actor, but he is now augmenting his talents to cinematography. His obsession apparently is now with light and images. He's working the camera and serving as DP for Strange Darlings. It's a little independent movie. I'm sure we'll be doing a review on it when it comes out. While he will still act in the big box office productions that he's known for, Giovanni plans to run camera for smaller independent films. And like I said, I'm sure we'll be reviewing those when they come out, because Rex and I continue to be really your best source for what's happening in the smaller independent films. Now, for those of you who are still utilizing cable services, you may be aware of some changes coming, but allow me to refresh the scenarios since a few things have augmented. NBC Universal is a huge conglomerate, obviously, and they're cutting loose the USA Network, CNBC, MSNBC, Oxygen, the Sci-Fi Network, E, and the Gulf Channel, and they're going to call them a separate company known as Spin. The reason is that especially the news operation channels have lost an awful lot of money, and the major corporation is kind of tired of feeding its profits down to keep them afloat. So as a result, they're cutting them off and making them their own separate company to make it or break it on their own. The once vaulted news networks are actually submitting in the ratings to the Cartoon Network, and even some cooking shows on the Food Network. Not good, not good. The only channels that NBC Universal officially will have under its banner are Bravo and the streamer Peacock. And some further drama. CBS is also feeling the effect of its news departments failing ratings and a suck, if you will, on profits. It is affecting its Paramount spin-off channels. And all of these will soon have probably a new direction and a whole new look as Skydance has bought them out. And finally, Netflix is venturing into live broadcasts. I'm sure many of you tuned in to watch the Tyson-Paul fight. They had some problems with that, okay? Got that little circle of death going on, a few of them, and what have you. But they did correct everything because the WWE went over to Netflix, and they're now doing Monday Night Raw there. And that certainly has not had any technical problems and is looking good. And Netflix is eyeing other pro sport leagues and has them firmly in its sight. Could get interesting. Let me mention a few movies to you. Fist of Legend, Tai Chi Master, The Legend, and The Legend 2, and The Bodyguard from Beijing. They sound familiar? If they do, then you know they are all classic movies from Jet Li. And Jet Li has entered into a collaboration with Shout Studios, and all those early Jet Li classics will now be available in pristine digital format. They're going to come out this month, and then later toward the summer, you're going to be able to buy all of them together in a digital package, and they will be featured on both Apple TV and Fandango at Home. Those are good movies, so a lot of fun going on there. You know, Steve Pond, this guy gets under my skin. He's probably one of the worst journalists going around. He is so enamored with his own superiority. He constantly writes reports for trade magazines, and most likely in Variety, that ignore facts and promote his own dystopian beliefs. The latest case in point, he penned an article that was called Neutral Territory. The article delineates how gender-neutral characters are essential to Hollywood. The rationale here is that Hollywood is mandated to educate the unwashed masses through their films and their TV shows who voted for the very hateful President Trump, and they must change their way of thinking. And naturally, Pond is in lockstep with this. So he writes the article and then details several polls that were taken around the Hollywood area, revealing that audiences, by and large, don't care about neutral gender characters and would rather have a solid, entertaining story as the prime issue with a movie. Count me among those. Now, because the polls did not back his ideology, he ended the article by saying that no matter what the polls indicate, it is essential for filmmakers to incorporate gender-neutral roles into all their films. You know, I read all these Freylocks so that I can bring you stories and keep abreast of what's going on, but believe me, it's painful. All right, we want to get on to a serious note here. Recently, Ed Blank passed away. For those of you that knew Ed, you know that he's been on this show several times. He was a staple for, what would you say, Dave, about 7 years, 8 years, easy? He had 25 years at the Pittsburgh Press, where he served as their film reviewer and drama editor. He liked that a lot. When the press collapsed due to a strike, he went over to the Tribune Review back in 1993, and he stayed as their film reviewer and critic until he retired in 2007. He also, during his retirement, taught some classes in film at the University of Pittsburgh's Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. Those classes were an awful lot of fun. He used to talk about them a lot. You know, Ed and I had a kind of an interesting career parallel going on. Originally, when we met, I don't want to say we were adversaries, but we were very strong competitors. He was writing for the press. I was writing for several local newspapers. And our reviews always got to the point where everything he liked, I didn't, and vice versa. And it caused for some tension at the screenings in Pittsburgh. And all of that broke with the movie Bridges of Madison County. My God, people, do you remember this movie with Clint Eastwood? And I think the girl was Meryl Streep, I believe. It was the worst movie. I had it in the worst movies of the year list that I put, but he thought it was the best. He thought no other movie came close to Bridges of Madison County. And we sat there and we looked at, we knew what our reviews were, and we started talking, and we just both started laughing. And from that point on, we would compare our reviews, and almost every time he liked something, I didn't, and vice versa. And occasionally, when we both liked the same film, it caused him to be concerned. He was worried that maybe he was starting to lose it a little bit. He became a really good friend. We were together in a group called the Media Boys, which was a collection of old broadcast journalists and newspaper journalists in the Pittsburgh area. We would have monthly meetings and meet and sit and talk. Ed and I would always sit together because we talked films. That's how I got to meet Bill Cardille, Chili Billy, and became friends with him. And just a good time every month when we got together and had our little luncheons or dinners or what have you. And I was able to talk Ed into coming on the show. And he would come on during the Oscar time, and he would make his Oscar predictions, and you pretty much could take them to the bank. He was spot on. He is now no longer with us. He will sorely be missed. I counted him as a friend, and he certainly was a friend of this show. A fond farewell to Ed Blank. You know, there are a lot of celebrities who branch off and go into businesses as a way of supplementing their careers once their stardom has begun to fade. Michael Knowles has done this. He is probably one of the nation's premier conservative talk radio hosts, and he's also started his own cigar company. And through a series of events, his cigars, Mayflower, are at House of Fairuza Barbershop and Cigar Lounge, located at the corner of South Park Road and Drake Road. When these things came, and Sam got them down there, naturally I tried them out. Folks, I have to tell you, I had some favorite cigars before. These Mayflower cigars knock them right off of the shelf. There's two types. There's a Dawn, which is very, very light, and it's exceptionally good for those who might be starting out cigar smoking for the first time. Then there's Dusk, and this one's a little bit heavier, but very, very flavorful. They have fast become my favorite smoking choices, and if you go down there and see Sam and he hooks you up with them, I think they'll become yours as well. They're very hard to get in Pittsburgh, but House of Fairuza Cigar Lounge always has a cache for you. The House of Fairuza Cigar Lounge and Barbershop, located at the corner of Drake Road and South Park Road. Stop in and see Sam today. And finally tonight, we have an Irish horror film that was filmed in Iceland. I know, I shouldn't try accents. It just doesn't work out well. Hey, it's the 19th century, and there's a small fishing port that witnesses a ship sinking in a very severe storm. Now, Eva is in charge of the fishing crew, and she got that by osmosis. Her husband was the one who ran the port and owned the boat, but he recently died, so now Eva is doing the taking charge, if you will. The seas are a bit too tempestuous to attempt a rescue, So she orders her men to stay put as they watch the ship go down and these poor people die. The next day, it appears that a lot of the ship's supplies are floating in the water. So now she says the men should go out and grab the provisions because they're running out and don't have an awful lot. When they go out to get the provisions, they find that members of the crew are still alive on an iceberg and they're screaming for help. Well, the fishing outfit is short on supplies and cannot accommodate any additional men, so they leave them abandoned on the ice cap. And then the legend of the Draugr begins to circulate through camp. The Draugr is a creature of Nordic lore who causes the sea to give up their dead. This sounds right up the alley for somebody. So we should peel back the veils of time and head back to the early Cretaceous one more time. Check in with the nation's first and only prehistoric film critic, Rex Reel.
Writer-director Thordar Paulson weaves a slow, methodical tale of horror. Unfortunately, the horror transforms from supernatural to natural to satisfy the film's theme: the living are more deadly than the dead.
Say, if you appreciate psychological horror films, then you're probably going to appreciate The Damned. The actors do a fine job in this, so I want to at least mention them. Odessa Young, Joe Cole, Rory McCann, and Siobhan Finneran. They all do a nice job. Here now is a look at The Damned.
Night, when everyone was in bed, there was a knock at the door.
May the Lord protect you from harmful sea creatures and dangerous pirates.
Go.
I've seen evil trying to get in here.
The dead can't break free if you hammer iron nails into their feet.
What happened on that ship was a terrible tragedy.
He doesn't care. I wouldn't sleep if I were you. A thing like that never stops.
It's never too late to ask for forgiveness for what we did.
It won't stop until it's taken all of us.
Keep it away! Keep it away from me!
We should not be here.
Help me! Help me!
The living are always more dangerous than the dead.
Well, once again, I've loaded the show with so much information that we don't have time to do it all, so we've got to skedaddle. Don't forget there's a new episode of In the Crease, and don't forget to check out my exclusive interview with Brian Saponis and Jesse Hutchins in their new film. And now that you have learned what you have learned, here endeth your lesson.